The air felt different that morning. Thinner somehow. I remember standing by the kitchen window, watching the first snowfall of December blanket my garden in white, and feeling something shift inside me. Like the universe was trying to tell me something. My name is Margaret Coleman, and at 67, I thought I understood what it meant to be a mother, to give without expecting, to love without conditions. How wrong I was. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I never planned to raise Eleanor alone. When my husband Thomas died unexpectedly of a heart attack 17 years ago, our daughter was only 23, fresh out of college with dreams bigger than our small Connecticut town could hold. I sold our family home, downsized to a modest 2-bedroom condo, and put the remaining money into a trust fund Thomas and I had established years before. For Eleanor's future, Thomas had said when we first set it up. For when she really needs it. I kept my job at the local library longer than I'd planned, working 10 extra years past when I could have retired, squirreling away every spare penny I had. Not for me, I'd learned to live simply, but for Eleanor, my beautiful, ambitious Eleanor. When she married David 8 years ago, I helped them with the down payment on their first house in Boston. Nothing extravagant, $75,000 from my retirement savings. I was happy to do it. Family helps family. That's what my mother taught me, and what I hoped to teach Eleanor. "Mom, you're incredible," she'd said, hugging me tight at the closing. "This house will always be your home too." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Then came the monthly transfers. It started small, $1,000 here for unexpected medical bills, $2,000 there when David's car needed repairs. Before long, it became routine. Every month, like clockwork, $3,500 transferred from my account to theirs. "Just until David's promotion comes through," Eleanor would say. But that promotion came and went, followed by another, and still the transfers continued. I watched my retirement savings dwindle, but I told myself it was worth it. Eleanor and David were building their life, and little Sophia, my precious granddaughter, deserved the best start possible. I lived on my modest pension and Social Security, cutting corners where I could. I avoided turning on the heat until November, no matter how cold the apartment got. I learned which grocery stores marked down produce at the end of the day. I canceled my cable subscription and used the library's internet instead of paying for my own. But I never complained, not once. Because that's what mothers do, don't they? We sacrifice, we endure, we give until there's nothing left, and then somehow we find more to give. Last year, when Eleanor called to say they were renovating their guest bedroom, my heart soared. Maybe they were finally preparing a proper space for my visits. I'd been sleeping on their lumpy pull-out sofa during my twice-yearly trips to Boston, always feeling like I was intruding despite Eleanor's insistence otherwise. "The contractor says it'll be done by Thanksgiving," she'd said. "We're doing pale blue walls, your favorite color, Mom." I marked the dates on my calendar in red ink, November 22nd, 26. 5 days with my family for Thanksgiving, 5 days to cuddle Sophia, now 7 and growing too fast. 5 days to feel like I belonged somewhere, with people who wanted me. By early November, I'd already purchased my bus ticket to Boston. I'd wrapped Sophia's gifts, a handmade quilt I'd spent months stitching and a collection of books I'd carefully selected. For Eleanor and David, I splurged on an expensive bottle of whiskey I knew he liked, and a cashmere scarf for her in a rich burgundy that would complement her dark hair. I was packing my suitcase, carefully folding my nicest sweater, the one without any mending, when my phone rang. "Eleanor." I answered with a smile in my voice. "I was just packing for next week. I can't wait to see the new guest room." The silence on the other end lasted a beat too long. My stomach tightened. "About that, Mom?" Eleanor's voice had that particular tone, the one she'd used as a teenager when she was about to deliver bad news. There's been a change of plans. My fingers clutched the sweater tighter. What kind of change? David's parents decided to come for Thanksgiving after all. They called yesterday. Oh, I said, relief washing over me. That's wonderful. I've only met them twice. It'll be nice to spend more time together. Another pause. Longer this time. The thing is, Mom, they're staying in the guest room. I sat down slowly on the edge of my bed. I see. Well, that makes sense. They're traveling farther. I swallowed hard. The sofa bed will be fine for me. That's just it, Eleanor continued, her voice softer now. David's sister Melissa is coming too, with her new baby. They'll be on the sofa bed. My mind raced, trying to find a solution. I don't need much space. Maybe I could... David suggested you could stay in the basement, she interrupted. We have that old futon down there. It's not ideal, I know, but it's just for a few nights. The basement, with its concrete floor and musty smell, where they stored their Christmas decorations and exercise equipment they never used, where the furnace made that alarming rattling sound all night long. The basement isn't finished, Eleanor. My voice sounded distant even to me. I know, it's not perfect, but we're in a bind here. David's family doesn't visit often, and his mom has back problems. She needs a real bed. I closed my eyes, feeling something cold settle in my chest. And the Thanksgiving dinner? Will there be room for everyone at the table? Another hesitation. We thought we'd do 2 seatings. Family first and then. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Family first. And I, apparently, was not family. I understand, I said quietly, though I didn't. Not really. After we hung up, I sat motionless on my bed, the half-folded sweater still in my hands. Family first. The words echoed in my mind, sharp and cutting. When had I become an outsider? When had my daughter's in-laws become more family than I was? That night, I barely slept. Questions churned through my mind like autumn leaves in a storm. Was it something I'd done? Had I visited too often? Not often enough? Was I too needy? Too distant? By morning, something had shifted inside me. A lifetime of accommodation and sacrifice suddenly felt heavy, like stones in my pockets pulling me under. I reached for my phone and did something I'd never done before. I called my attorney. Judith Chen had handled my late husband's estate and had been gently pestering me for years to update my own will. I'd always put it off. What was the point? Everything would go to Eleanor anyway. Margaret. Judith sounded genuinely pleased to hear from me. Don't tell me you're finally ready to discuss your estate planning? Actually, yes, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. And I'd like to discuss Thomas's trust fund as well. Of course. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. When would you like to come in? Today, if possible. I have some changes I'd like to make before Thanksgiving. 2 hours later, I sat in Judith's office, a cup of herbal tea cooling on the side table as she pulled up my file on her computer. So, the Thomas Coleman Family Trust, she said, scanning the document, currently valued at approximately $1.2 million. Eleanor is the sole beneficiary to receive the full amount upon your passing. She looked up at me. Is that still your wish? I took a deep breath. What are my options for amending the terms? Judith leaned forward slightly. There are several approaches we could take. You could change the beneficiary entirely, specify certain conditions that must be met before funds are distributed, create a staggered distribution schedule. She paused. May I ask what's prompted this review? I hadn't planned to share the details, but suddenly found myself telling Judith everything: the years of financial support, the basement accommodations, the family first seating arrangement. She listened without interrupting, her expression professionally neutral. When I finished, she nodded once. I understand. And yes, we can certainly modify the trust to better reflect your wishes. For the next hour, we discussed possibilities. By the time I left her office, the trust had new terms that would ensure my daughter understood exactly what family first really meant. That evening, I called Eleanor back. "I've been thinking about Thanksgiving," I said when she answered. "Oh, Mom, I'm so glad you called. I was worried you were upset about the basement situation." "I've made a decision," I continued, ignoring her comment. "I won't be coming for Thanksgiving after all." "What? But you always come for Thanksgiving." The surprise in her voice was genuine. "Is this because of the sleeping arrangements? Because we can try to figure something else out? It's not just about where I sleep, Eleanor." My voice was calm, hiding the storm beneath. "It's about where I stand, and it seems I'm somewhere below the futon in the basement." "Mom, that's not fair. We're just trying to accommodate everyone." "Tell me something," I interrupted. "If David's sister can sleep on the sofa bed, why can't his parents?" The silence stretched between us, thin and brittle. "It's not that simple," she finally said. "It never is." I sighed. "Enjoy your Thanksgiving, Eleanor. Give Sophia a kiss for me." I ended the call before she could respond. Then I opened my suitcase and began unpacking the gifts and clothes I'd so carefully selected. My hands trembled slightly, but my resolve didn't waver. For the first time in 17 years, I would spend Thanksgiving alone. And for the first time in much longer, I would put myself first. The week before Thanksgiving crawled by. I kept expecting Eleanor to call back, to apologize, to insist I reconsider, to offer a proper place at their table and in their home. But my phone remained silent. On Thanksgiving morning, I woke early. Outside, a light snow was falling, dusting the world in white. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, watching the flakes dance in the wind. An unexpected peace had settled over me. Not happiness exactly, but a quiet certainty that I was finally standing up for myself. I had just put a small turkey breast in the oven, no sense in not enjoying a proper meal just because I was alone, when my doorbell rang. Puzzled, I wiped my hands on a dish towel and went to answer it. Eleanor stood there, Sophia beside her, both pink-cheeked from the cold. "Surprise," my daughter said weakly. I blinked in confusion. "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in Boston with David's family." Eleanor shifted uncomfortably. "Can we come in? It's freezing out." "Here." I stepped aside and they entered, bringing with them a gust of cold air and the scent of winter. Sophia immediately wrapped her arms around my waist. "Grandma, I missed you. Mom said we're having Thanksgiving with you instead this year." I hugged her back, even as I raised an eyebrow at Eleanor over her head. "Did she now?" Eleanor shrugged out of her coat. "I told David I couldn't do it. I couldn't have Thanksgiving without my mother." "What about David? And his family?" "They're still at our house. David stayed to host them." She hesitated. "He wasn't happy about me leaving, but I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. About where you stand." I gestured toward the kitchen. "I only prepared enough for one. I wasn't expecting company." "We can help you cook more," Sophia piped up. "I'm really good at mashing potatoes now." Despite myself, I smiled at her enthusiasm. "I'm sure you are, sweetheart." As we moved to the kitchen, I studied my daughter. Something was off. This impromptu visit didn't feel like a genuine change of heart. It felt strategic. "So," I said, as Sophia busied herself examining the turkey in the oven, "what really brings you here on Thanksgiving morning? It's a 3-hour drive from Boston." Eleanor's eyes darted away from mine. I told you. I wanted to be with you today. After arranging to put me in the basement and serving me dinner after the real family, forgive me if I'm skeptical. She winced at my directness. Mom, about that. I'm sorry. It came out wrong. Did it? Or did it come out exactly as intended? I pulled another apple from the refrigerator for the pie I'd been planning. You haven't called once since I canceled my trip. Not to apologize. Not to check on me, not even to express disappointment. Eleanor sank into a kitchen chair. Things have been complicated. Life is always complicated, Eleanor. That's not an excuse for treating people poorly. She stared at her hands for a long moment. When she looked up, her expression had changed. Less defensive, more calculating. You're right, Mom. We haven't treated you fairly, and I want to make it up to you. She reached for my hand. In fact, I've been thinking, maybe you should sell your condo and move in with us, permanently. I nearly dropped the apple I was holding. Move in. With you? In the basement? No. She laughed nervously. In the guest room, of course. We could convert Sophia's playroom into a sitting area for you. Give you your own little suite. You wouldn't have to worry about bills or maintenance anymore, and we'd be together. I studied my daughter's face. The too bright smile, the anxious eyes. This sudden reversal made no sense. Unless... That's quite a change of heart, I said carefully. What does David think of this plan? He's completely on board. He agrees we should be taking better care of you at your age. At my age? As if I were decrepit instead of completely self-sufficient. And what brought on this sudden concern for my welfare? Eleanor shifted in her seat. Do we need a reason to want to look after you? After 17 years of me looking after you? Yes, I think you do need a reason. My directness clearly startled her. She'd always known me as accommodating, yielding, eager to smooth over conflicts, but that Margaret was gone. Well, she said finally, we've just been worried. Living alone at your age isn't ideal, and financially it would make sense for all of us. You could sell your condo, we could pay off some debts, and everyone would be more secure. There it was, the real reason for this surprise visit. Not concern for me, but access to my assets. What kind of debts, Eleanor? She waved a hand dismissively. Just the usual. Mortgage, car payments. David made some investments that haven't panned out yet, but they will. We're just in a temporary cash crunch. And my monthly transfers aren't enough anymore? Her cheeks flushed. That's not what It's exactly what you meant. I set down the apple and knife. How bad is it, Eleanor? The truth this time. She seemed to deflate before my eyes. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. David's company is downsizing, and his position might be eliminated. The credit cards are maxed out. She swallowed hard. We might lose the house. I nodded. Slowly, pieces falling into place. And you thought if I sold my condo and moved in with you, we could use the proceeds to catch up, just temporarily. Once David finds a new position. If he finds a new position. Mom, please, we're desperate. I looked over at Sophia, who was happily arranging and rearranging the refrigerator magnets, blissfully unaware of the adult conversation. My heart ached for her. None of this was her fault. Does David know you're here asking me for money? Eleanor nodded miserably. It was his idea for you to move in with us. He said it would solve everyone's problems. Except mine, I said, quietly. What do you mean? You'd be with family, with Sophia. In a house where I'm relegated to the basement when inconvenient visitors arrive, where I eat at the second seating because I'm not real family. Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. Mom, I said I was sorry about that. Being sorry isn't the same as changing how you see me, how you value me. I took a deep breath. I spoke with my attorney last week about the trust fund. Eleanor's head snapped up, tears instantly forgotten. Dad's trust fund? Why? Is something wrong? Nothing's wrong. I simply updated the terms. What? What terms? Her voice was cautious now. The original arrangement was that you would inherit everything upon my death. That's changed now. The color drained from Eleanor's face. Changed how? The new terms specify that you'll receive a monthly stipend from the trust. A generous fun, but not enough to bail out a sinking ship. The bulk of the trust will be held for Sophia until she turns 30. You can't do that. Eleanor's voice rose sharply. Dad meant that money for me. Your father meant that money for our family's future. And right now, the way you and David manage money, there won't be any left for Sophia's future if I don't protect it. So you're punishing me for asking you to sleep in the basement one time? I shook my head. This isn't punishment, Eleanor. It's a wake-up call. You and David have been living beyond your means for years, using me as a safety net. Every month I send money that disappears into a black hole of debt and poor choices. Meanwhile, I'm living on less than what I send you. That's not true. Don't lie to me, I said firmly. Not anymore. I've seen your social media posts, the luxury ski trip last winter, the new kitchen renovation, the designer clothes, all while I'm turning my thermostat down to 62 degrees to save on heating bills. Eleanor fell silent, unable to deny the truth. There's more, I continued. The trust now includes a family care provision. What does that mean? It means that if I ever do need care, real care, not just a convenient excuse to access my assets, a portion of the trust will provide for me to receive that care in my own home or in a facility of my choosing. Not in your basement, not in your converted playroom, in a place where I have dignity. Tears spilled down Eleanor's cheeks. So you don't trust me at all? I trusted you for 17 years. I trusted you with my retirement savings. I trusted you when you said your home was my home too. I sighed. Trust is earned, Eleanor. And right now, you and David need to earn it back. So that's it? You're cutting us off? When we need you most? I glanced at Sophia, still innocently playing nearby, and lowered my voice. I'm not cutting you off. The monthly stipend will continue. Actually, it's slightly more than what I've been sending. But it comes with conditions. What conditions? Eleanor's voice was hollow. Financial counseling, for one. The trust will pay for it. David needs to actively seek employment if he loses his job. No finding himself for 6 months. And most importantly, you both need to start treating me like family. Real family, not a convenience or an ATM. Eleanor stared at me, shock giving way to anger. I can't believe you're doing this. After everything we've been through. After everything I've done for you, I corrected gently. That's the problem, Eleanor. It's been very one-sided. And that ends today. She stood abruptly. We should go. This was clearly a mistake. I looked at her steadily. Running away won't change the terms of the trust, and it won't solve your financial problems. Come on, Sophia, Eleanor called, ignoring my comment. We're leaving. Sophia looked up in confusion. But what about Thanksgiving dinner with Grandma? We'll get drive-through on the way home, Eleanor snapped, reaching for their coats. You're welcome to stay, I said. My offer of Thanksgiving dinner stands. No, thank you. Eleanor's voice was ice. Enjoy your holiday alone. Isn't that what you wanted? I watched as she bundled a protesting Sophia into her coat and hustled her toward the door. My heart ached, but I remained steady. This confrontation had been inevitable. I'd simply chosen the time and place. Eleanor, I called as they reached the door. The trust terms aren't punitive. They're protective. For all of us. When you're ready to talk again, really talk, I'll be here. She paused, hand on the doorknob, back rigid. For a moment I thought she might turn around. Instead, she pulled the door open and stepped out into the snowy afternoon without another word. As the door closed behind them, I let out a long, shaky breath. The apartment felt suddenly large and empty. I returned to the kitchen, where the half-prepared meal waited. For a moment, I considered abandoning it. What was the point of cooking? A feast for one? But then I straightened my shoulders. This was still Thanksgiving. And for the first time in years, I truly had something to be thankful for. The strength to finally stand up for myself. I turned the oven temperature down to slow cook the turkey, picked up my knife, and resumed slicing apples for the pie. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the world in clean, blank whiteness. A fresh start. A new beginning. My phone remained silent for the rest of the day. No calls from Eleanor, no texts. I ate my solitary Thanksgiving dinner at my neatly set table, complete with candles and my best china. I even opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. Because this was special. My Declaration of Independence. As I sipped my wine, I thought about the trust fund and its new terms. I hadn't lied to Eleanor. The changes weren't meant to punish her. They were about protecting Sophia's future and ensuring that the money Thomas and I had worked so hard to save would be used wisely. But there was something I hadn't told her. Something I couldn't bring myself to say in the heat of our confrontation. The truth was, if Eleanor and David truly changed, if they demonstrated financial responsibility and treated me with genuine respect and care, the terms could be amended again. The trust included a review provision that allowed for adjustments, based on changed circumstances. I hadn't closed the door completely. I just locked it until she was ready to knock properly. That night, as I washed the dishes from my Thanksgiving meal, my phone finally chimed with a text message. I dried my hands and picked it up, expecting an angry tirade from Eleanor. Instead, I found a message from an unknown number. Mrs. Coleman, this is David. Eleanor doesn't know I'm texting you. We need to talk about the trust, just you and me. I stared at the screen for a long moment, considering my response. Then I typed, yes, I think we do. But not tonight. Call me tomorrow. I set the phone down and returned to my dishes. Whatever David wanted to discuss, it could wait until morning. Tonight was still my Thanksgiving, and for the first time in 17 years, I was putting myself first. What happened next with David's phone call would change everything, but that's a story for tomorrow. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button, and tell me in the comments, have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? Your stories help others feel less alone. The morning after Thanksgiving dawned gray and cold. I'd slept fitfully, my dreams filled with Eleanor's angry face and Sophia's confusion. Outside my window, the snow had stopped, leaving behind a pristine blanket that muffled the usual street noise. I made coffee and settled at my kitchen table, my phone placed deliberately in front of me. David would call today. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I was prepared. At precisely 9:30, the phone rang. David's number. I took a deep breath and answered. Good morning, David. Margaret. His voice was tight, controlled, so different from the charming, easygoing man who had swept Eleanor off her feet 8 years ago. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me. Of course. What can I do for you? I kept my tone pleasant but neutral. Eleanor told me about your conversation yesterday, about the changes to the trust. I waited, saying nothing, let him fill the silence. I think there's been a misunderstanding, he continued finally. Eleanor was upset, and she may have misinterpreted what you were saying. No misunderstanding, David. I've amended the terms of Thomas's trust. My attorney filed the paperwork last week. He cleared his throat. Margaret, with all due respect, that money was meant for Eleanor. Thomas would have wanted her to have it. Thomas wanted financial security for his family, I corrected, not to enable years of poor financial decisions. A pause. When David spoke again, his voice had softened, taking on that persuasive tone he used when trying to close a deal. Look, I know we've had some setbacks recently. The job market is tough right now, but things are about to turn around. I have some promising leads. That's good to hear, I interrupted. The stipend from the trust should help tide you over until one of those leads pans out. The stipend isn't enough, he said flatly, abandoning the charm offensive. We need more than that to stay afloat. How much more, David? How deep are you in? Another pause. I could almost see him weighing how much to reveal. We're behind on the mortgage. 3 months. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We've got about $42,000 in credit card debt. And, he hesitated, there's a tax lien on the house from last year. I closed my eyes briefly, worse than I'd thought. Why didn't you tell me things were this bad? We thought we could handle it. I had an investment opportunity that was supposed to pay off big, but it fell through. Then Eleanor didn't want to worry you. I sighed. An investment opportunity. What kind, exactly? A friend's startup, blockchain technology. It was a sure thing. Nothing is a sure thing, David, especially not when you're gambling with borrowed money. He made a frustrated sound. That's not fair. I was trying to secure our future, to build something for Sophia. Now by maxing out credit cards and risking your home? That's not building, David. That's destroying. I don't need a lecture, he snapped. I need help. Real help. Not some measly monthly allowance. We need enough to clear the debts and get back on our feet. I took a sip of my coffee, gathering my thoughts. The trust isn't designed to be a bailout fund. It's meant to provide sustainable support over time. And right now, frankly, I don't trust either of you to manage a large sum responsibly. So that's it? You're just going to let us lose everything? Let your granddaughter become homeless? The emotional manipulation was so transparent it almost made me laugh. Almost. Don't be dramatic, David. You have options. You could sell the house, downsize to something more affordable. You could liquidate some of those expensive toys in your garage. You could both take second jobs. We can't sell the house in this market. Not fast enough anyway. And Eleanor has Sophia to look after. Many parents work and raise children, David. It's been done before. Silence again. Then his voice dropped lower, more intimate. Margaret, please. I'm begging you. If not for us, then for Sophia. She doesn't deserve to have her life turned upside down because of our mistakes. I felt a twinge of guilt. He was right about one thing. Sophia didn't deserve any of this. But throwing money at the problem wouldn't fix the underlying issues. I'm not going to change the trust terms, David, but I will help, on my conditions. What conditions? His tone was wary. First, complete financial transparency. I want to see all of it. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, tax returns, everything. That's personal. Not when you're asking me for help. It isn't, I cut in firmly. Second, you both attend financial counseling. The trust will pay for it. Third, you find employment, any employment, within 30 days. No more waiting for the perfect opportunity. And if we do all that, then I'll consider advancing some funds from the trust to address the immediate crisis. Not everything, but enough to stop the foreclosure if that's truly imminent. David was quiet for so long I thought he might have hung up. Finally, he sighed. I'll talk to Eleanor, but she's pretty upset with you right now. I understand that. Sometimes the right decisions aren't the popular ones. She said some things yesterday. About how we've treated you. About the basement. He paused. For what it's worth, that was my idea, not hers. She was caught in the middle. I appreciated the admission, even if it wasn't quite an apology. Eleanor makes her own choices, David. She always has. Yeah, well, she's stubborn like her mother. There was the faintest hint of his old humor in his voice. Like her father, actually, I corrected, allowing myself a small smile. Thomas could outstubborn a mule when he believed he was right. I wouldn't know. I never got to meet him. The observation landed like a stone in still water. He was right. David had never known Thomas, never experienced his integrity, his work ethic, his absolute devotion to family. What example had David had instead? What had I shown Eleanor about standing up for oneself? No, you didn't, I said softly. But it's not too late for you to embody some of the values he lived by. Honesty, responsibility, putting family first, really first, not just when it's convenient. David cleared his throat. I should go. I'll talk to Eleanor about your conditions. Thank you for calling, David. I meant what I said yesterday. I'm not closing the door. I'm just asking you both to knock properly before entering. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, turning the conversation over in my mind. Had I been too harsh? Not harsh enough? The revelation about their debt was alarming. $42,000 in credit cards alone, plus the mortgage arrears and tax lien. They must be at least $70,000 in the hole, probably more. I thought of Thomas, what he would have done in my position. He had always been generous but never foolish. He believed in helping people help themselves, not enabling destructive patterns. I'm trying to do right by them, Thomas, I whispered to the empty kitchen. Even if they can't see it yet. 3 days passed with no word from Eleanor or David. I tried not to worry, reminding myself that they were adults who needed to make their own decisions. I kept busy with my volunteer work at the library and took long walks through the snow-covered neighborhood. On Monday afternoon, I was returning from one such walk when I spotted an unfamiliar car in the visitor's parking space of my condo complex. As I approached my building, the car door opened and Eleanor stepped out. Alone this time. She looked tired, the circles under her eyes pronounced against her pale skin. Her hair, usually meticulously styled, was pulled back in a hasty ponytail. She wore an old parka I hadn't seen in years. "Hi, Mom," she said quietly as I reached. Eleanor, this is a surprise. Can we talk? Inside? I nodded and led the way to my unit. Once inside, she removed her coat and glanced around the apartment, as if seeing it for the first time. Perhaps she was. It had been nearly 2 years since she'd last visited me. Would you like some tea? I offered. Sure. Thanks. I busied myself in the kitchen while she settled on the sofa. When I returned with 2 steaming mugs, I found her studying the framed photos on my side table. Pictures of her growing up. Her wedding day. Sophia as a newborn. I talked with David, she said as I handed her the tea. About your conversation. I sat in the armchair across from her. I figured you would. He told me how bad things really are. All of it. She blew on her tea, not meeting my eyes. I knew we were struggling, but I didn't realize. I knew we were behind on some payments, but a tax lien? He never mentioned that. You didn't check the mail or look at the bank statements? She shook her head. David handles all the finances. He always has. He said I didn't need to worry about it, that he had everything under control. And you believed him. He's my husband, Mom. Of course I believed him. She finally looked up at me, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. How could he keep something like this from me? How could he let it get so bad? I wanted to reach out to her, to comfort her as I had when she was small. But this wasn't a skinned knee or a broken toy. This was adulthood, with all its complicated consequences. People hide financial problems for many reasons, I said gently. Shame, pride, fear of disappointing their partner. Sometimes they genuinely believe they can fix things before anyone notices. But $42,000 in credit card debt? How does that happen without me knowing? The same way it happened without me knowing, despite sending you money every month for years. We see what we want to see, Eleanor. We believe what's comfortable to believe. She sipped her tea, hands trembling slightly. He says we might lose the house, that we might have to declare bankruptcy. Those are possibilities, yes. Sophia loves that house. Her school is around the corner. All her friends are there. Children are resilient, more resilient than we give them credit for. She set down her mug with a sharp click. How can you be so calm about this? This is our lives falling apart. No, Eleanor. This is the consequence of choices you and David made. Choices to live beyond your means, to assume the money would always be there. So this is our punishment? Your way of teaching us a lesson? I shook my head. This isn't punishment, it's reality. And it would have arrived whether I changed the trust terms or not. The only difference is that now there's a path forward, if you're willing to take it. David mentioned your conditions. Her voice was reluctant. Not conditions, boundaries. There's a difference. Financial counseling, complete transparency, David finding a job within 30 days. Yes. She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit she'd had since the day David placed it on her finger. And if we agree, you'll help with the immediate crisis? I'll advance enough from the trust to prevent foreclosure, yes, and to clear the tax lien. Not the credit cards. Those you'll need to address through the counseling process. Why not just give us access to the whole trust? We could clear everything at once and start fresh. I studied my daughter's face, so like Thomas's, with those same expressive eyes that could never quite hide her emotions. Right now, they revealed a mix of hope, desperation, and something else. Calculation. Because money isn't your problem, Eleanor. It's a symptom. The problem is how you and David think about money, how you use it. Until that changes, no amount will ever be enough. She looked away. You don't trust us. I don't trust your financial judgment. There's a difference. And the stipend? That's permanent? For now. The trust includes provisions for review. If your circumstances change, if you demonstrate responsible financial management over time, the terms can be adjusted. Hope flickered across her face. So it's not forever? Nothing is forever, but real change takes time and commitment. She was quiet for a long moment, absently running her finger around the rim of her mug. Finally, she looked up at me, her expression more vulnerable than I'd seen in years. I'm scared, Mom, she whispered. I don't know how to fix this. For the first time since she'd arrived, I moved to sit beside her on the sofa and took her hand. You don't have to know, right? Now, that's what the counseling is for, to help you figure it out, step by step. What if it's too late? What if we've messed up too badly? It's never too late to change direction, Eleanor. Never. She squeezed my hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. About the basement. About everything. I squeezed back. I know. No, I need to say this. I've been taking you for granted for years. Using you. I didn't see it that way. I just saw it as what families do for each other. But it wasn't equal, was it? It was all flowing one way. From you to us. Yes, I said simply, not softening the truth. And the worst part is, I'm not even sure. When it happened. When I started seeing you as an ATM instead of my mother. She wiped at her tears with her free hand. Or when I started letting David make all the decisions, even when they felt wrong. I watched as years of realizations crashed over her at once. It was painful to witness, but necessary. Sometimes we need to hit bottom before we can begin the long climb back up. I think, I said carefully, that it happened gradually, one small concession at a time, one unanswered question, one uncomfortable conversation avoided. She nodded, her gaze distant. David wasn't always like this, you know. When we first met, he was different. Ambitious, but grounded. He talked about building something meaningful, not just making money. What changed? She shrugged helplessly. I don't know. Pressure, maybe? Everyone around us seemed to be doing so well. Bigger houses, newer cars, exotic vacations. We wanted to keep up. The comparison game is one no one ever wins, Eleanor. I'm starting to see that. She released my hand and straightened her shoulders. So what happens now? With the trust? I mean, if you and David agree to the conditions, boundaries, she corrected with the ghost of a smile. Boundaries, I acknowledged. If you agree, I'll have Judith draw up the necessary paperwork. Once that's signed, she'll arrange for a payment to address the immediate foreclosure threat and tax lien. And the counseling? The trust will cover 6 months of sessions with a financial advisor of Judith's recommendation. After that, we'll reassess. Eleanor nodded slowly. I need to talk to David, but I think we'll agree. I don't see what choice we have. There's always a choice, Eleanor, even when none of the options are pleasant. She stood gathering her coat. I should go. Sophia will be home from school soon. I walked her to the door, feeling a cautious optimism. Not that everything was fixed, far from it, but at least we were beginning to have honest conversations. It was a start. As she put on her coat, Eleanor hesitated, then turned to face me fully. Mom, there's something else I need to ask you. What is it? Would you be willing to come for Christmas? Not in the basement, she added quickly. In the guest room, where you belong. The invitation warmed me, but I was wary. What about David's parents? They're going on a cruise, for real this time. Her smile was rueful. And even if they weren't, your family, you should never have been relegated to the basement. I considered for a moment. Let's see how the next few weeks go. I'd like to come, but I want to make sure everyone is genuinely comfortable with it, including David. She nodded, understanding the implicit boundary. Fair enough. She zipped her coat and reached for the door, then paused. One more thing. Would you consider having dinner with us this weekend? Just a regular dinner, nothing fancy. Sophia keeps asking when she'll see you again. I'd like that, I said softly. After Eleanor left, I stood at the window watching as she got into her car and drove away. A tentative peace had been established, but I knew the real tests were yet to come. Financial habits don't change overnight. Trust, once damaged, takes time to rebuild. Still, it was something. A beginning. I turned from the window and went to call Judith. There was paperwork to prepare, arrangements to make. The path forward wouldn't be easy for any of us, but for the first time in a long while, I felt we were at least facing in the right direction. The weekend dinner was a subdued affair, held at a modestly priced Italian restaurant near Eleanor and David's house. Sophia, delighted to see me, chattered excitedly about school and her upcoming holiday play. Eleanor was warm but slightly reserved, as if still processing our recent conversations. David was clearly uncomfortable. He was polite enough, asking about my volunteer work at the library and commenting on the unseasonably cold weather. But underneath the small talk, I could sense his resentment. Every time Eleanor mentioned the trust or the financial counseling, his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. We had our first session yesterday, Eleanor told me as we waited for dessert, with the financial advisor. She seems really knowledgeable. That's good, I replied. Judith speaks highly of her. She's already helped us figure out a budgeting system. Eleanor glanced at David. We've cut up all but one emergency credit card. David nodded stiffly. And I've got an interview on Tuesday. Nothing fancy, just an office manager position at a dental practice. That sounds promising, I said, genuinely pleased. Stable hours would be good for the family. It's a step down from what I'm used to, he muttered. But we do what we have to do, right? Sophia, bored with the adult conversation, had begun creating an elaborate design with the remaining breadsticks. Grandma, look, it's a castle. I turned my attention to her artwork, grateful for the diversion. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Very creative. As the evening progressed, I noticed something interesting. Eleanor, usually deferential to David's opinions, was subtly but decidedly taking charge. When the bill came, she reached for it before David could, reviewing it carefully before placing her credit card inside. "I've got it, Mom," she said when I offered to contribute. "We've worked out a dining budget for the month." David's expression tightened further, but he said nothing. The shift in their dynamic was palpable and not entirely comfortable, but change rarely is. After dinner, as we stood in the parking lot saying our goodbyes, Sophia threw her arms around my waist. "Will you come to my holiday play, Grandma? I'm a snowflake." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I assured her. Eleanor smiled. "It's next Friday at 7. I can pick you up on my way, if you'd like." "That would be lovely." David hung back, keys in hand, clearly ready to end the evening. As Eleanor and Sophia walked toward their car, he approached me. "Margaret," he began, voice low, "I want you to know that I'm doing this for them, for Eleanor and Sophia. Not because I agree with your boundaries." I met his gaze steadily. "I understand, David. Your reasons are your own. As long as you follow through, that's what matters. I'm not a bad person, you know. I was trying to build something for my family. I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're someone who made some bad decisions. There's a difference." He glanced toward the car, where Eleanor was buckling Sophia into her seat. "She's changed since Thanksgiving, since your talk. She's asking questions, looking at statements, challenging me. Is that a problem?" His jaw worked for a moment. "It's different." "Different can be good, David. A partnership is stronger when both people are fully engaged." He nodded, though I wasn't sure he really believed it. "I should go. Tuesday's interview. I need to prepare." "Good luck," I said sincerely. "I'm rooting for all of you." As I drove home that night, I reflected on the subtle power shifts I'd witnessed. Eleanor, more assertive. David, struggling to adjust. Sophia, blissfully unaware of the tensions swirling around her. We were all finding our way through uncharted territory, each of us adjusting to the new reality. The following week brought a series of small but meaningful updates. Eleanor texted that David had been offered the office manager position and had accepted it. The salary was less than his previous job, but the hours were predictable, and it came with health benefits. Judith informed me that all the paperwork had been filed, and the trust had advanced funds to address the foreclosure threat and tax, lien, as promised. On Friday evening, I sat in the elementary school auditorium, watching a procession of children in various winter-themed costumes perform a play about the changing seasons. Sophia, resplendent in her homemade snowflake costume, delivered her 2 lines perfectly and beamed when she spotted me in the audience. After the performance, as families milled about the hallway, congratulating their young performers, Sophia ran to me, still wearing her glittering costume. "Grandma, did you see me? Did you hear my lines?" I knelt to her level, heedless of my creaking knees. "You were the most beautiful snowflake in the whole play. I'm so proud of you." She threw her arms around my neck, and I breathed in the scent of her, a mix of school glue, the faint artificial vanilla of the lotion Eleanor had always favored, and something uniquely Sophia. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that everything, the confrontations, the hard boundaries, the uncomfortable conversations, had been worth it. For her, for all of us. Eleanor approached, smiling, She's been practicing those lines for weeks. It showed. She was wonderful. We chatted amiably as Sophia collected her belongings from the classroom. David, Eleanor explained, had to work late at his new job. The office was behind on filing, and he was determined to make a good impression. "How's it going?" I asked. "The job? The counseling? All of it?" Eleanor's smile turned rueful. "Honestly, it's hard, really hard. The budget feels impossible, some days. And David." She lowered her voice. "David struggles with it, being told what he can and can't spend. Having to account for everything." "And you?" "I'm learning about myself mostly. How passive I've been. How much I've avoided knowing." She shook her head. "Did you know we have 3 separate credit cards I didn't even know existed?" "Just in David's name. The counselor found them when she did our credit check." I managed to keep my expression neutral, though the revelation didn't entirely surprise me. "That must have been difficult to discover." "It was. It is." She sighed. "Sometimes I wonder if we'll make it through this. As a couple, I mean." The admission hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I chose my words carefully. Marriage is resilient, Eleanor. But it requires honesty from both partners, and a willingness to grow together, not apart. "I know, and I'm trying to remember that." She squared her shoulders. "Anyway, we're making progress. Small steps. Small steps add up to miles eventually." She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "That sounds like something Dad would say." "It is. It was one of his favorites." Sophia bounded back to us then, having changed out of her costume into regular clothes. "Can Grandma come home with us? Please, Mom. We have hot chocolate, and I want to show her my new books." Eleanor glanced at me. "We'd love to have you if you'd like to come." The invitation seemed sincere, free from the calculation I'd sensed during her Thanksgiving visit. I nodded. "I'd like that very much." The house looked different somehow when we arrived. Tidier, certainly, but also simpler. Some of the more ostentatious decor pieces were missing. The oversized abstract art in the foyer. The elaborate crystal vase that had always seemed out of place in their family room. "We've been downsizing a bit," Eleanor explained, noticing my glance. "The financial counselor suggested we might consider selling some things we don't really need." "It looks nice," I said honestly. "More like a home and less like a showroom." She laughed. "That's exactly what I said to David. He didn't find it quite as amusing." We settled in the kitchen, where Eleanor prepared hot chocolate while Sophia proudly showed me her latest library books. The room felt warm, comfortable, normal, like a family kitchen should feel. As I sipped my cocoa and listened to Sophia's elaborate explanation of her favorite story, I felt a sense of rightness settle over me. This simple evening of ordinary family connection was what I had been missing. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts or elaborate holiday meals, just the quiet assurance of belonging. Later, as Eleanor walked me to my car, she hesitated, then asked, "About Christmas? Have you thought any more about it?" "Yes," I said. "I'd like to come, if the invitation still stands." She hugged me then, a real hug, tight and wholehearted. "It absolutely does. And I promise, no basement, no second seating, no afterthought. Your family, Mom. The most important family we have." Driving home through the quiet December evening, I realized something had shifted fundamentally. Not just in Eleanor and David's financial situation or in their marriage, but in my relationship with my daughter. For years, I had defined my worth by what I could give her: money, support, childcare, whatever she needed. I had made myself small to make room for her needs, and in doing so, I had taught her that I was someone whose needs didn't matter. By finally standing up for myself, by setting those firm boundaries, I had given her something far more valuable than money. I had shown her what self-respect looks like, what healthy love looks like, and perhaps, most importantly, I had given her permission to find those things for herself. The trust fund ultimatum had never really been about the money. It had been about worth, about value, about recognizing that love without respect is no love at all. As I pulled into my condo parking space, my phone chimed with a text from Eleanor. "Thank you for coming tonight. Sophia hasn't stopped talking. About you. Love you, Mom." I smiled as I replied, "Love you too. Always have. Always will. Some trusts, after all, can never be broken." Christmas arrived with a fresh dusting of snow and temperatures cold enough to frost the windows of my condo in delicate crystalline patterns. I stood in my bedroom, examining my reflection in the full-length mirror. I'd chosen a deep burgundy sweater, cashmere, a splurge from years ago that I rarely wore, and charcoal slacks. My silver hair was freshly styled, and I'd even applied a touch of makeup. It felt important somehow to look my best today. This Christmas would be different. No basement, no second-tier status. No pretending that being excluded didn't hurt. I gathered the gifts I'd wrapped, more modest than in previous years, but more thoughtful. For Sophia, a collection of classic children's books that had been Eleanor's favorites, along with a hand-knit scarf in her favorite color. For Eleanor, a delicate silver bracelet that had belonged to my mother. For David, a leather-bound journal with a note inside expressing my hope for a new beginning. As I was loading everything into the car, my phone rang. Eleanor. "Mom?" She sounded breathless. "Are you on your way yet?" "Just about to leave. Is everything all right?" "Yes. Well?" She hesitated. "There's been a slight change of plans. Nothing bad, I promise. Just, can you come a bit earlier? Maybe now?" I glanced at my watch. We'd agreed on 3 p.m. It was barely noon. "I suppose I could. Is there a problem?" "No problem. Just a situation that would be better if you were here sooner." My mind raced with possibilities, none of them particularly cheerful. Had David changed his mind about having me there? Was there another family crisis brewing? "I'll leave right away," I said, trying to keep the worry from my voice. "Thanks, Mom. Drive carefully. The roads are a bit slick." 40 minutes later, I pulled into their driveway, noting that theirs was the only car present. At least David's parents weren't part of this situation, whatever it was. Before I could even ring the doorbell, the door flew open. Sophia stood there, practically vibrating with excitement, wearing a party dress with a slightly crooked bow in her hair. "Grandma, you're here. Now we can start." "Start what, sweetheart?" I asked, stepping inside. Eleanor appeared behind her, looking flushed and happy. "Mom, perfect timing. Come in, come in." The house smelled wonderful, pine and cinnamon and roasting turkey. Christmas music played softly in the background. Eleanor took my coat and ushered me into the living room, where I stopped short in surprise. The space had been transformed. A beautifully decorated tree stood in the corner, strung with white lights and a mismatched collection of ornaments. A fire crackled in the fireplace, and the coffee table was set for tea with my mother's old china cups, the ones I'd given. Eleanor, years ago, arranged alongside a plate of homemade Christmas cookies. "What's all this?" I asked, genuinely confused. Eleanor smiled. "Sit down, Mom. We have something for you." I settled on the sofa as Sophia scrambled up beside me, cuddling close. David entered from the kitchen, carrying a small, wrapped package. He looked different somehow, more present, less distracted than he'd been at the school play. "Merry Christmas, Margaret," he said, handing me the package. "But we weren't going to do gifts until later," I protested. "This one's special," Eleanor explained. "We wanted to give it to you first before everyone else arrives." "Everyone? Just open it, Grandma," Sophia urged. I unwrapped the package carefully. Inside was a small velvet box, the kind that typically holds jewelry. I opened it, expecting perhaps a necklace or earrings. Instead, I found a key. An ordinary house key, tied with a red ribbon. "I don't understand," I said, looking up at them in confusion. Eleanor sat down on my other side. "It's a key to this house. Your house. Well, not just your house. Our house. All of us." "I still don't." David stepped forward. "What Eleanor's trying to say is, we want you to move in with us. Not in the basement," he added quickly. "We've been renovating the third bedroom, the real guest room, for you, with your own bathroom, your own space." I stared at them, speechless. "It was David's idea," Eleanor said softly. I shot him a questioning look. He shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. "The financial counseling. It's made us reevaluate a lot of things. One of them being how we use this house. It's too big for just the three of us, especially with the heating costs." "And it seemed?" He hesitated. "Wasteful for you to be paying for a condo when we have a perfectly good room here." "Not to mention," Eleanor added, "how much Sophia misses you, and how much help it would be to have you around more often." "And we miss you too, Mom. I miss you." I turned the key over in my hand, emotions swirling. Just weeks ago, I'd been banished to the basement. Now they wanted me to live here permanently? Part of me was touched, deeply so. Another part was suspicious. Was this just another angle to access more of the trust money? As if reading my thoughts, David spoke again. "This isn't about money, Margaret, or the trust. We've been talking with the financial counselor about downsizing, possibly selling this place and finding something smaller, more manageable with my new salary. But then we realized, why not share what we have? Pool our resources." "And it wouldn't be one-sided this time," Eleanor added earnestly. "We'd share expenses fairly. You'd contribute what you're comfortable with, but no more than you're paying now for the condo. We've worked out all the numbers with the counselor." "And you'd have your own bathroom," Sophia chimed in, clearly repeating a selling point she'd heard the adults discuss. I looked at each of their faces in turn. Sophia's pure excitement, Eleanor's hopeful vulnerability, and most surprisingly, David's genuine openness, a humility I'd never seen in him before. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "This is unexpected." "You don't have to decide right now," Eleanor assured me. "We know it's a big change." "We just wanted you to know that you're welcome here," David added. "Not as a guest, as family." "That's why we wanted to give you this before everyone else arrives," Eleanor explained. "It's private. Just us." "Everyone else?" I repeated, momentarily distracted. Eleanor smiled. "I invited Robert and Diane, and Sarah from your book club. Even Ms. Chen, Judith, is stopping by later with her husband. I thought it would be nice to have a real family Christmas, with everyone who matters to us." I felt tears prickle at the corners of my eyes. This was so far from what I'd expected today. So far from the tense, obligatory holiday I'd been preparing myself for. "You did all this? For me?" Eleanor squeezed my hand. "You've been doing everything for us for years. It's time we started, giving back." I looked down at the key again, then around the room, at the carefully arranged tea service, the fire, the tree, at Sophia's eager face, at my daughter and son-in-law, watching me with something I hadn't seen from them in years. "Respect. I'd like to think about it," I said finally. "It's a wonderful offer, truly, but it's a big decision." "Of course," David nodded. "Take all the time you need." "But today," I continued, smiling through my tears, "today, I'd just like to enjoy Christmas with my family. My real family." Sophia cheered and threw her arms around me. Eleanor leaned in to join the hug, and after a moment's hesitation, David did too. We sat there, arms entwined, a tangle of forgiveness and possibility and cautious hope. The doorbell rang, interrupting our moment. Sophia leapt up. "That must be Uncle Robert and Aunt Diane. Can I open the door, Mom, please?" "Go ahead, sweetheart," Eleanor smiled. As Sophia raced to the door, Eleanor turned back to me. "Are you okay, Mom? We didn't mean to overwhelm you." "I'm more than okay," I assured her. "I'm just processing. It's a lot to take in." David stood. "I should check on the turkey. It needs basting." He paused, then added awkwardly, "We really did fix up that room for you, Margaret. No matter what you decide about moving in, it's yours for whenever you visit. No more basement. Ever." As he left for the kitchen, I looked at Eleanor. "He's different. You both are." She nodded. "The last few weeks have been clarifying." After the financial counseling started, we had some long, hard conversations. About money, about our marriage, about what kind of example we want to set for Sophia. She glanced toward the foyer where Sophia was enthusiastically greeting her uncle and aunt. "And about how we've treated you. It can't have been easy." It wasn't. Still isn't some days. David's pride. Well, it took a hit. Mine too, if I'm honest. She twisted her wedding ring, that old nervous habit. "But we're trying. Really trying." "I can see that," I said softly. The house gradually filled with guests. Robert and Diane brought their golden retriever, whom Sophia immediately adopted as her best friend. Sarah from my book club arrived with her famous cranberry bread. Judith and her husband came later, bringing a bottle of expensive scotch that David received with genuine appreciation. The atmosphere was relaxed, joyful. We gathered around the dining table, one seating, all of us together, and shared a meal that Eleanor and David had prepared together. The turkey was slightly overdone, and the gravy had lumps, but somehow that made it better, more real. After dinner, as the adults lingered over coffee and dessert, I found myself in conversation with Judith. "They seem different," she observed, watching Eleanor and David across the room. "More grounded." "They're trying," I agreed. "It's a process." She nodded. "The financial counselor says they're making excellent progress. David, especially, has been remarkably engaged in the process." "That surprises me," I admitted. "Sometimes people just need the right motivation," she said, giving me a knowing look. "And sometimes they need to hit bottom before they can start climbing back up." Did I do the right thing, Judith? "With the trust." She considered this. "Only time will tell for certain. But based on what I'm seeing today? Yes, I think you did." Later, as the party began to wind down, I helped Eleanor clear the dessert plates. We worked side by side in comfortable silence for a few minutes before she spoke. "I've been meaning to ask you something, Mom. About the trust." I tensed slightly. "What about it?" "The review provision. How exactly does that work? What would we need to do to— if we wanted to eventually—" "Access more of the principal?" I supplied. She nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. "It's fairly straightforward. After a year of demonstrating financial responsibility, sticking to a budget, maintaining employment, making regular payments on debts, Judith and the financial advisor would review your situation. If they determine you're on a sustainable path, the terms could be modified, perhaps allowing larger lump sums for specific purposes, like Sophia's education." "A year," she repeated. "That seems reasonable." "It's not a punishment, Eleanor. It's a protection. For all of us." "I know that now." She scrubbed at a stubborn bit of dried frosting on a plate. "I just wish." "What?" "I wish we hadn't wasted so much time, so much money, so many years treating you like—" She trailed off. Like an ATM? I suggested gently. She winced. Yes. God, it sounds awful when you say it out loud. It wasn't all your fault. I allowed it. I enabled it. Why? She asked, finally looking at me directly. Why did you let us treat you that way for so long? I considered the question carefully. I think after your father died, I was afraid of losing you too. Afraid that if I didn't give you everything you asked for, you might drift away. And then later, it just became a pattern. The path of least resistance. I wouldn't have, she said quietly. Drifted away, I mean. You're my mother. And you're my daughter. But relationships need more than blood to sustain them. They need mutual respect, honesty, boundaries. We're learning that, the hard way. She smiled ruefully. I just hope it's not too late. It's never too late to change course, Eleanor. Never. The party continued into the evening. Sophia, overtired and overstimulated, eventually fell asleep on the sofa, her head in my lap, the retriever curled at her feet. As I stroked her hair, watching the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree, I felt a contentment I hadn't experienced in years. One by one, the guests departed with warm hugs and promises to get together again soon. By the time the last car pulled away, it was nearly midnight. David, surprisingly, had abstained from the scotch, staying clear-eyed and engaged throughout the evening. As Eleanor carried a sleeping Sophia up to bed, David and I found ourselves alone in the living room, the remains of the party scattered around us. That was nice, he said, gathering empty glasses onto a tray. Better than nice? Actually, it was good. Really good. Yes, it was, I agreed. He paused in his tidying. About the moving in thing. I meant what I said. It's not about the trust. Or money. Well, not entirely. Oh? The counseling. It's been eye-opening. One of the things we've been discussing is value. What really matters. He set down the tray and faced me directly. I've spent years chasing the wrong things. Status, the appearance of success, keeping up with people who honestly I don't even like very much. I nodded, encouraging him to continue. When you changed the trust terms, I was angry. Furious, actually. It felt like you were punishing us, treating us like children. He shook his head. But then the counselor had us do this exercise, listing all our assets, not just financial ones, family connections, skills, support systems, and I realized family is the most valuable asset we have, and we've been squandering it. I've been squandering it. That's quite an insight, David. Yeah, well, he looked slightly embarrassed. I'm a slow learner, I guess, but I am learning. I can see that. So the invitation is genuine. We want you here. Not for your money, for you. I studied his face, searching for any hint of the old calculation, the charm that concealed agenda. I found none. Just a tired man who'd finally understood what really mattered. Thank you, I said simply. I promise I'll think about it. Eleanor returned, looking weary but content. Sophia's out like a light, too much excitement. And sugar, she added with a smile. It's late, I observed. I should probably head home, soon. Stay, Eleanor said immediately. Your room is all ready. We can have breakfast together in the morning. Sophia will be so excited if you're here when she wakes up. I hesitated, then nodded. All right, just for tonight. They showed me to my room, the former guest room, now transformed. The walls had been painted a soft blue-gray. The furniture was simple but elegant. A queen-sized bed with a padded headboard, a comfortable reading chair by the window, a dresser with a small television atop it. The attached bathroom was modest but spotless, with fresh towels and even a few toiletry items arranged thoughtfully on the counter. We weren't sure what you'd like, Eleanor explained nervously. but we tried to make it comfortable. It's lovely, I said, genuinely touched. Thank you. After they left, I sat on the edge of the bed, taking it all in. Just months ago, I'd been deemed unworthy of a proper sleeping space in this house. Now they'd created a room specifically for me, with careful attention to details that would make me comfortable. People could change. Relationships could heal. I'd always believed that, intellectually. But watching it happen in real time, with my own daughter and son-in-law, was something else entirely. I slept deeply that night, more peacefully than I had in months. When I woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows, and the scent of coffee and bacon wafted under the door. I dressed quickly and followed the enticing aromas to the kitchen. David was at the stove, expertly flipping pancakes while simultaneously monitoring the bacon. Eleanor was setting the table, and Sophia, still in her pajamas, was arranging fresh berries in a bowl with painstaking precision. "Grandma!" she exclaimed when she spotted me. "You're awake! Daddy's making his special." Christmas pancakes. "Good morning, everyone," I said, oddly shy. David glanced over his shoulder. "Coffee's fresh. Help yourself." As I poured a cup, I observed the easy rhythm of their morning routine. David and Eleanor moved around each other comfortably, exchanging small touches and quiet words. Sophia chattered happily, secure in the knowledge that she was the center of her parents' world. It was normal, healthy, the kind of family morning I'd always hoped Eleanor would have. We ate breakfast together and then gathered around the tree to open presents. The gifts were modest this year, a reflection of their new financial reality, but thoughtfully chosen. Sophia was delighted with the books I'd brought her, immediately asking me to read her favorite. Eleanor teared up when she unwrapped the silver bracelet, recognizing it instantly as her grandmother's. David seemed genuinely touched by the journal. "This is beautiful, Margaret. Thank you." "Open the first page," I suggested. He did, reading, aloud the note I'd inscribed. "To David, may these pages hold the story of your fresh start. With hope and faith, Margaret." He looked up, his expression open. "I'll use it. For the good stuff and the hard stuff." "That's what it's for." I nodded. Later, as Sophia played with her new toys and David tackled the breakfast dishes, Eleanor and I sat by the tree, enjoying a quiet moment. "Have you thought any more about moving in?" she asked tentatively. I smiled. "It's only been one night." "I know, but it felt right, didn't it, having you here?" "It did," I acknowledged. "But it's still a big decision. I've been independent for a long time. I'm not sure I'm ready to give that up entirely." She considered this. "What if it wasn't all or nothing? What if you kept your condo for now, but stayed here a few nights? A week? A transition period to see how it works for everyone?" The suggestion surprised me. It was thoughtful, practical, and respected my autonomy. A far cry from the emotional manipulation I'd come to expect. "That might be a viable compromise," I said slowly. "I could try it for a month or two, see how it feels." Eleanor's face lit up. "Really? You'd consider it?" "I'm considering it," I cautioned. "No promises." "That's enough for now." She squeezed my hand. "Just knowing you're open to it means everything." As the day progressed, I found myself observing the subtle dynamics of their household. David, though still carrying himself with a certain pride, was more engaged with Sophia, more attentive to Eleanor. Eleanor herself seemed more centered, less anxious to please. And their interactions with me were marked by a deference that felt genuine rather than calculated. By late afternoon, it was time for me to head home. As David helped me carry my overnight bag to the car, he paused. "Margaret, there's something I've been meaning to tell you." "What is it?" He shifted uncomfortably. "During one of our counseling sessions, the topic of financial transparency came up. Full disclosure of all accounts, debts, assets. I nodded, waiting. There was something I hadn't told Eleanor. Something I should have. He took a deep breath. Last year, when I said I'd invested in a friend's startup, it wasn't exactly accurate. Oh? I actually lost most of it gambling. Online poker, mainly. It started small, just a way to blow off steam when work got stressful, but then I started chasing my losses and he shook his head. Anyway, it got out of hand. I haven't placed a bet in 2 months now. The counselor referred me to a support group for problem gamblers. I absorbed this revelation, pieces clicking into place. The secrecy, the mysterious financial holes, the desperate need for cash injections. Does Eleanor know now? He nodded. I told her everything during counseling. It was one of the hardest conversations of my life, but also the most honest. How did she take it? Better than I deserved. She was angry, of course, hurt that I'd lied. But she's standing by me. His voice caught. I don't know why after everything I've put her through, but she is. Because she loves you, I said simply. And because everyone deserves a second chance. Even me? There was genuine vulnerability in his question. Even you, David. Especially you. You're Sophia's father, and Eleanor's husband. Those roles matter. He nodded, eyes suspiciously bright. Thank you for telling me the truth, for understanding, for supporting us, and for this, he gestured over his shoulder at the house, for giving us a reason to become better. I watched him for a moment, this flawed, struggling man who was trying, with evident difficulty, to rebuild himself and his family. You're welcome, David. Just don't waste the opportunity. I won't, he promised. None of us will. As I drove home through the winter twilight, I reflected on the extraordinary transformation of the past month. From being relegated to the basement to being offered a permanent place in their home. From being treated as an inconvenient ATM to being valued as an essential family member. The trust fund ultimatum had worked, not as a punishment, but as a catalyst for honest conversation and genuine change. It had forced all of us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our relationships. It had cleared away the debris of resentment and entitlement, creating space for something healthier to grow. I wasn't naive enough to believe that everything was fixed. David's gambling admission was concerning, and their financial situation remained precarious. Trust, once damaged, takes time to fully restore. But we were on a path now, a difficult one perhaps, but headed in the right direction. And as for moving in with them, I wasn't sure yet. Part of me was tempted by the vision of daily life with Sophia, of rebuilding a deeper relationship with Eleanor. But another part treasured my independence, the quiet rhythms of my own space. Perhaps Eleanor's compromise was the answer for now, a gradual transition. Time to adjust, to ensure that the changes we'd all experienced were lasting rather than temporary. As I pulled into my condo parking space, my phone chimed with a text from Eleanor. Thank you for staying last night. The house feels empty without you already. Thinking about what you said regarding mutual respect and boundaries, you were right. Love you, Mom. I smiled as I typed my reply. Love you too. Merry Christmas. Some gifts, after all, can't be wrapped or placed under a tree. Sometimes the most valuable presents are the ones we give ourselves. The courage to speak our truth, the strength to enforce our boundaries, and the wisdom to recognize when it's time to forgive and move forward. Winter melted into spring, and with the changing seasons came a gradual shift in my relationship with Eleanor and her family. True to our agreement, I began spending 2 or 3 nights a week at their house, slowly adjusting to the rhythms of their household while maintaining my independence. The arrangement proved beneficial for everyone. On the nights I stayed, I would help Sophia with her homework and read her bedtime stories, giving Eleanor and David time to attend their counseling sessions or simply enjoy a quiet dinner together. During the days, I continued my volunteer work at the library and maintained my book club meetings, preserving the life I'd built for myself. By March, the financial counselor had reported significant progress. David's new job, while less prestigious than his previous position, provided stability and benefits. The regular hours meant he was home for dinner most nights, helping with household chores and becoming more involved in Sophia's education. Eleanor had taken a part-time job at a local bookstore, 20 hours a week while Sophia was in school. The additional income wasn't substantial, but it contributed to their debt reduction plan and gave Eleanor a renewed sense of purpose. I'd forgotten what it's like to have conversations with adults that don't revolve around Sophia or household management, she told me one evening as we prepared dinner together. It's nice to use my English degree again, even if it's just recommending books to customers. Their lifestyle had changed dramatically. Gone were the expensive dinners out, the impulse purchases, the weekend getaways. Instead, they embraced a simpler way of living, home-cooked meals, family game nights, free community events. David, surprisingly, seemed to thrive under the new constraints. There's something liberating about having a budget, he confessed to me one Saturday as we planted a vegetable garden in their backyard. Another cost-saving measure that had become a family project. When you can buy whatever you want, nothing feels special. Now, when we do treat ourselves, it really means something. I was impressed by their commitment, but remained cautiously optimistic. Financial habits, like any others, take time to change permanently. The real test would come when the initial motivation waned, when the novelty of their new approach wore off. That test arrived in early April with a phone call from David's former colleague. "They want me back," he announced at dinner that night. His expression a complex mix of pride and uncertainty. Parker and Associates, my old firm. One of their senior managers left unexpectedly, and they need someone who already knows the client portfolio. Eleanor set down her fork, her eyes wide. That's incredible, David. What did you tell them?" "That I'd need to discuss it with my family," he replied, glancing between Eleanor and me. "The salary is even better than before. Significantly better. But, I prompted gently. He sighed. "It's the same culture. Long hours, constant client entertainment, high pressure. The same environment that led me to..." He glanced at Sophia, who was happily focusing on her mashed potatoes, and adjusted his wording to make some poor choices. Eleanor reached for his hand. "You're worried about falling back into old patterns." "Yes," he admitted. "This job at the dental practice isn't exciting, but it's manageable, predictable. I'm home by 5:30 every day. I haven't missed a single one of Sophia's school events." I watched them carefully, saying nothing. This was their decision, a test of their new priorities, their commitment to change. "What would you do?" David asked suddenly, looking directly at me. "If you were in my position?" The question surprised me. A year ago, David would never have sought my opinion on such a matter. He would have made the decision unilaterally, assuming that the higher salary automatically made it the right choice. "I think," I said slowly, "that financial security involves more than just a large salary. It includes mental well-being, family stability, and sustainable patterns." "So, you think I should turn it down?" I shook my head. "I can't make that decision for you, David. But I would suggest discussing it with your financial counselor. See if there's a way to accept the position while implementing safeguards against the pressures that caused problems before." He nodded thoughtfully. "That's actually really good advice." Eleanor squeezed his hand. "We could set up automatic transfers for savings and debt payments before the money even hits our account." and maybe negotiate different hours or partial. Work from home days? And continuing the counseling sessions, David added. Definitely continuing those. I felt a surge of pride watching them problem solve together, approaching the situation with a maturity and partnership that had been lacking in their relationship before. They spent the next week in careful deliberation, consulting with the financial counselor and creating a detailed plan. In the end, David accepted the position, but with negotiated terms. 4 days in the office, 1 day working from home, and a strict limit on evening client entertainment. The old David would have seen those boundaries as career limitations, Eleanor told me privately. But he's different now. He understands what's really at stake. And what is that? I asked. Everything that matters, she replied simply. Our family, our future, our peace of mind. With David's increased salary, they revised their financial recovery plan. The counselor helped them establish a strict allocation system: 60% for essential living expenses, 20% for debt repayment, 15% for savings, and 5% for discretionary spending. The trust stipend now went entirely into an education fund for Sophia, a deliberate choice they made to demonstrate their commitment to financial independence. As spring bloomed into summer, their progress continued. The tax lien was resolved, their credit card balances steadily decreased, and they even managed to get 1 month ahead on their mortgage payments, a buffer they hadn't enjoyed in years. During this period, my own situation evolved as well. The more time I spent at their home, the more I realized how much I enjoyed being an active part of their daily lives. Watching Sophia master her multiplication tables, helping Eleanor plan her garden, even the quiet evenings when David and I would discuss books or current events while Eleanor attended her pottery class, these moments filled a void I hadn't fully acknowledged. By June, I was staying at their house 4 or 5 nights a week, returning to my condo primarily to collect mail and water my plants. The transition had been so gradual that I barely noticed when their home became our home in my thoughts. One warm evening, as we sat on the patio watching Sophia chase fireflies across the yard, Eleanor broached the subject. Mom, David and I have been talking. You're here most of the time anyway. Why not make it official? Sell the condo, move in. Permanently. I sipped my iced tea considering. I've been thinking about that myself, actually. And? There was a hopeful edge to her voice. I'm concerned about boundaries, I admitted. About maintaining my independence while living under the same roof. David leaned forward. We've talked about that too. What if we converted the back half of the garage? It's heated, and with some renovation, it could be a private apartment. Your own entrance, your own kitchenette. Privacy when you want it, but still connected to the main house. I raised my eyebrows, surprised by the thoughtfulness of the suggestion. You've given this some serious consideration. We have, Eleanor confirmed. The renovation would cost less than maintaining your condo. And it would give you the best of both worlds, independence and family. And if we're being completely honest, David added with a wry smile, having you here has been good for all of us. You keep us accountable. When I'm tempted to slip back into old spending habits, I think about how disappointed you'd be. I'm not here to police your spending, David. I know, but your presence is a reminder of the promises we've made, to ourselves and to each other. I watched Sophia, who had now collected a jar full of fireflies and was talking to them softly, her face illuminated by their gentle glow. Being here, witnessing these everyday moments of her childhood, it was a gift I hadn't expected at this stage of my life. Let me think about it, I said finally. The garage conversion is an intriguing idea. Take all the time you need, Eleanor assured me. We just wanted you to know the option is there. 2 weeks later, I signed the listing agreement for my condo. The real estate market was strong, and my agent was confident it would sell quickly at a favorable price. With David's help, I had worked out a budget for the garage conversion, determining that it was indeed financially viable. The renovation began in July. David, applying skills I hadn't known he possessed, did much of the work himself on weekends, with professional contractors handling the electrical and plumbing. Eleanor, Sophia, and I painted, sewed curtains, and hunted for furniture at estate sales and thrift shops. "It's like we're building a little house for Grandma," Sophia exclaimed one afternoon as she helped me arrange books on newly installed shelves. "It is," I agreed. "A house within a house." "And you'll never leave? You promise?" I hugged her close. "I can't promise forever, sweetheart. No one can. But I promise to be here as long as I possibly can." The project brought us together in unexpected ways. David and I developed a friendly rapport as we worked side by side, discussing everything, from literature to politics. Eleanor and I reconnected over shared tasks, rediscovering the easy companionship we'd enjoyed when she was younger. Even Sophia contributed, her childish enthusiasm infectious as she suggested paint colors and decorating ideas. By September, the apartment was complete. A cozy, self-contained space with a bedroom, bathroom, small living area, and kitchenette. Large windows overlooked the backyard garden, and a private entrance ensured I could come and go without disturbing the main household. My condo sold above asking price, providing me with a comfortable cushion of savings. As agreed, I contributed to the household expenses proportionally, but maintained my own separate accounts. Financial independence was a lesson I wanted to model for all of them, especially Sophia. The first night I spent in my new apartment, I lay awake for hours, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the house settling. Was I making a mistake? Had I surrendered too much independence? Would the fragile new balance we'd established hold under the pressures of daily proximity? But as weeks passed, those fears gradually subsided. We developed natural rhythms and respected each other's space. I took breakfast in my apartment most mornings, joining the family for dinner most evenings. When Eleanor and David needed privacy, I retreated to my own space without offense. When I participated in family activities, it was by choice rather than obligation. By the time the one-year anniversary of my trust fund ultimatum approached, our living arrangement had settled into a comfortable pattern. More importantly, Eleanor and David had maintained their financial discipline. With David's increased salary and their continued frugality, they had eliminated their credit card debt entirely and were now focused on accelerating their mortgage payments. In October, Judith requested a meeting to conduct the formal review of the trust terms as outlined in the amended document. We met in her office on a crisp autumn morning, Eleanor and David sitting nervously across from us as Judith reviewed their financial statements. "Well," she said finally, setting down the papers and removing her reading glasses, "I must say I'm impressed. You've made remarkable progress in the past year." Eleanor exhaled audibly. "So does that mean?" "It means we can discuss modifying the trust terms, yes." Judith glanced at me. "Margaret, as the trustee, you have the final say. But based on the financial records and the counselor's reports, I would support loosening some of the restrictions." I looked at my daughter and son-in-law. Their transformation over the past year went beyond financial responsibility. They had become more thoughtful, more grounded. Their relationship had deepened, evolving from the superficial partnership I'd observed before into a genuine team. "What modifications would you recommend?" I asked Judith. Given their consistent demonstration of financial responsibility, I believe we could increase the monthly stipend and allow for occasional lump sum distributions for specific purposes. Sophia's education, home repairs, that sort of thing, with appropriate oversight, of course. David leaned forward. "Actually, we've been discussing this, and we have a different proposal." Judith raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" "We'd like to keep the stipend as is, but establish a separate education fund for Sophia, with Margaret and the financial counselor as co-trustees." He looked at me. We don't need more money for ourselves. What we want is to secure Sophia's future the way you tried to secure Eleanor's. Eleanor nodded. And we'd like a portion of the trust to be designated for Margaret's future needs. Healthcare, travel, whatever she might want or need as she gets older. I stared at them, genuinely taken aback. That's not what I expected you to propose. We've learned a lot this past year, Eleanor said softly, about what really matters, about planning for the future instead of just living for today. Judith smiled. This is precisely the kind of mature financial thinking we hoped to see. I believe we can draft amendments to reflect these wishes. As we left the meeting, I found myself walking between Eleanor and David, an odd sense of completion washing over me. The trust fund ultimatum had begun as a desperate attempt to protect what remained of Thomas's legacy. It had evolved into something far more valuable, a catalyst for genuine change, a foundation for a healthier family dynamic. Are you disappointed? Eleanor asked as we reached the parking lot. That we didn't ask for more access to the principal? I shook my head. Quite the opposite. I'm proud of you both. Your proposal showed foresight and maturity. We had a good teacher, David said, surprising me with a quick side hug. Once we started actually listening to you, that is. That evening, as I prepared dinner in the main house, a family tradition we'd established for Friday nights, Sophia burst through the door, waving a paper triumphantly. Grandma, look, I got an A on my math test. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and examined her test paper, covered in multiplication problems neatly solved. This is excellent work, Sophia. I'm so proud of you. She beamed, then lowered her voice conspiratorially. I have something else to show you, but it's a secret. Come to my room? Intrigued, I followed her upstairs. Her bedroom, once a chaotic explosion of toys and clothes, had become more organized in recent months, another reflection of the broader changes in the household. Sophia pulled a small box from under her bed and opened it carefully. Inside was a collection of crumpled dollar bills and coins. $27.35, she announced proudly. I've been saving my allowance for 3 whole months. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Are you saving for something special? She nodded solemnly. Mommy's birthday is next month. I want to buy her something really nice, by myself, with my own money. I felt a swell of emotion. At 7 years old, Sophia was already absorbing the lessons of financial responsibility and thoughtful generosity that had taken her parents decades to learn. That's one of the kindest things I've ever heard, I told her. Your mom will be so touched. Daddy helped me make a budget, she confided. He said if I save $2 every week, I'll have enough by her birthday, and I've been extra careful not to spend any on candy or toys. Later, after Sophia was in bed, I related the conversation to Eleanor and David as we lingered over coffee in the living room. She's saving for your birthday gift, I told Eleanor. From her allowance. Eleanor's eyes widened. Really? That's so sweet. And financially savvy, David added with a proud smile. She came to me for budgeting advice. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I observed. She's learning from what she sees you both doing. Let's hope she learns from our current habits, not our past mistakes, Eleanor said ruefully. Children absorb more than we realize, I agreed, both the good and the bad. David set down his coffee cup. Speaking of learning from the past, there's something I've been meaning to ask you, Margaret. Oh? The trust fund. Was it always your plan to use it this way? As a kind of financial wake-up call? I considered the question. No, not at all. When Thomas and I established it, we simply wanted to provide for Eleanor's future. A safety net, not a teaching tool. Then what changed? Eleanor asked. What made you decide to amend the terms last year? You did, I said simply. Both of you. The basement incident was just the final straw. I realized that continuing to enable your financial irresponsibility wasn't helping anyone. Not you, not Sophia, not even me. It must have been hard, David mused, taking such a firm stand against your own daughter. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, I admitted. Harder than watching Thomas die. Harder than learning to live alone. I paused, gathering my thoughts. But sometimes loving someone means saying no, especially when saying yes would only perpetuate harmful patterns. Eleanor reached for my hand. I'm glad you did it, Mom. As painful as it was at the time, it was the wake-up call we needed. All of us, I added, myself included. I needed to learn that being a good mother doesn't mean being a doormat. That boundaries aren't just healthy, they're necessary. David nodded thoughtfully. You know, when you first changed the trust terms, I was convinced you were punishing us, that you were being vindictive because we'd hurt your feelings. And now? Now I understand you were actually trying to save us, from ourselves mainly. He grinned, though I still maintain the basement would have been perfectly comfortable. Eleanor swatted his arm. David, it was cold and musty and horrible. I'm kidding, he laughed, holding up his hands in surrender. No basements for in-laws. Lesson learned. As their playful banter continued, I sat back, a deep contentment settling over me. This easy companionship, this mutual respect, was what I'd hoped for, but scarcely dared to expect when I'd made my stand a year ago. The trust fund ultimatum had worked, but not in the way I'd initially anticipated. It hadn't just protected Thomas's legacy. It had transformed our family dynamic. It had forced all of us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our relationships. It had cleared away the debris of resentment and entitlement, creating space for something healthier to grow. Later that night, as I settled into my apartment, I found myself thinking of Thomas. What would he make of all this? Of our daughter's journey from entitlement to responsibility? Of our son-in-law's evolution from financial recklessness to mature planning? Of our granddaughter's early lessons in saving and giving? I like to think he would approve, that he would see, as I did, how money, or more precisely, how we relate to money, can reveal our deepest values and priorities. The basement incident, painful as it had ultimately been a gift. It had shattered the facade of our family relationships, exposing the unhealthy patterns beneath. And in doing so, it had created an opportunity for genuine healing and growth. As I prepared for bed, my phone chimed with a text from Eleanor. Just saying goodnight and thanks for the delicious dinner. Love having you here, Mom. It feels right, doesn't it? I smiled as I typed my reply. It does. Good night, sweetheart. See you at breakfast. She was right. It did feel right. Not perfect. No family ever is, but right, balanced, healthy. The trust fund ultimatum had been a risk, a leap of faith based on the belief that my daughter and son-in-law were capable of better. That beneath the entitlement and financial irresponsibility lay the potential for growth and change. And they had proven me right, exceeding my expectations in ways I couldn't have imagined. They had not only addressed their financial issues, but had fundamentally reconstructed their values, their priorities, their approach to life itself. The basement would remain empty this Christmas, and every Christmas after. Because I now had a permanent place in their home and in their lives, not as an ATM or a convenience, but as a valued family member whose boundaries and needs were respected. Some lessons are expensive. This one had cost us months of estrangement, tears, and painful confrontations. But as any wise investor knows, the true value of something isn't measured by its cost, but by its return. And the returns on this particular investment, in boundaries, in honesty, in mutual respect, would continue to compound for generations to come. Time has a curious way of softening the edges of difficult memories while clarifying their meaning. 2 years to the day after I amended the trust fund terms, I found myself reflecting on how far we had all come. The family gathered in the backyard for a Sunday afternoon barbecue, an informal celebration of what Eleanor had jokingly dubbed our Financial Independence Day. David manned the grill with unexpected skill, a hobby he had discovered during our leaner times and continued to enjoy, despite now being able to afford restaurants again. Eleanor arranged a salad made with vegetables from our garden, while Sophia and her friend Emma decorated cupcakes at the picnic table. I watched them. From my favorite spot on the patio, a comfortable Adirondack chair positioned to catch the afternoon sun. At my side sat Robert, my late husband's brother, who had become a more regular presence in our lives since the family's reconciliation. "Quite a transformation," he observed, nodding toward David and Eleanor. "If you'd told me 2 years ago that those two would become models of financial responsibility, I'd have laughed myself silly." I smiled, sipping my lemonade. People can surprise you when given the right motivation. "And the right guidance," Robert added. "Don't downplay your role in this, Margaret. Your tough love approach wasn't easy, but it was exactly what they needed." "What we all needed," I corrected, myself included. And it was true. The trust fund ultimatum had changed me as profoundly as it had changed them. I had discovered a strength I hadn't known I possessed, a willingness to stand firm even when it meant temporary discomfort. I had learned that love sometimes requires the courage to say no, to establish boundaries and hold them, even when facing tears and anger from those we care about most. Judith arrived a few minutes later, bearing a bottle of wine and a folder tucked under her arm. Though technically my attorney, she had become a friend over the past 2 years, joining us for holidays and occasional dinner parties. Today, however, her visit had a professional purpose as well. "Sorry I'm late," she said, settling into the chair beside me. "The paperwork took longer than expected to finalize." "No need to apologize," I assured her. "We're just enjoying the afternoon." Sophia spotted Judith and raced over, her hands sticky with frosting. "Ms. Chen, do you want to see the new treehouse? Dad and Uncle Robert built it last weekend." Judith laughed. "In a bit, sweetie. I need to talk to your grandmother and parents first." Eleanor approached, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "Business before pleasure, Sophia. Why don't you show Emma how to use the swing while we grown-ups chat for a few minutes?" As the girls scampered off, David joined us, setting down a platter of grilled vegetables. "Is that what I think it is?" he asked, nodding toward Judith's folder. "If you think it's the finalized amendment to the trust, then yes," she confirmed, opening the folder and removing several documents, all ready for signatures. The moment felt significant, the culmination of 2 years of growth and change. The original trust amendment, my ultimatum, had been conceived in pain and desperation, a last-ditch effort to protect what remained of Thomas's legacy from financial irresponsibility. This new amendment, by contrast, had been carefully crafted through mutual discussion and shared goals. "Let me summarize the key points before you sign," Judith said, slipping on her reading glasses. "First, the trust will continue to provide a monthly stipend to Eleanor and David, but with increased flexibility in how those funds may be used, provided quarterly financial reviews show continued responsible management." I nodded, noting how different this felt from the rigid restrictions I had initially imposed. This wasn't about control anymore. It was about partnership. "Second," Judith continued, "a separate educational fund has been established for Sophia, with all three of you, Margaret, Eleanor, and David, serving as co-trustees. This fund will cover her education from primary school through graduate studies, if she chooses to pursue them." David smiled proudly. "And thanks to our additional contributions over the past year, it's already well-funded." This was true. Once they had eliminated their high-interest debt, David and Eleanor had begun adding to Sophia's education fund themselves, small amounts at first, then more substantial contributions as their financial situation improved. It was perhaps the clearest indication of how deeply their priorities had shifted. Third, Judith went on, a portion of the trust has been designated for Margaret's long-term care needs, ensuring that she will always have access to quality health care and assistance should it become necessary. Which it won't, I interjected with a smile. I plan to remain a troublesome, independent old woman for many years to come. Eleanor squeezed my hand. Humor us, Mom. We want the same security for you that you've provided for us. And finally, Judith concluded, the remainder of the trust will be held in a family foundation to be used for charitable purposes of your collective choosing. This foundation will serve as both a philanthropic vehicle and a financial education tool for future generations. This last provision had been Eleanor's idea, a way to ensure that Sophia and any future grandchildren would learn about money management, generosity, and social responsibility from an early age. The foundation would make modest grants to local causes, with family members of all ages participating in the decision-making process. It looks perfect, Eleanor said, reviewing the documents. Exactly what we discussed. David nodded in agreement. A plan that honors both Thomas's intentions and the lessons we've learned since then. We signed the papers with a sense of quiet ceremony, each of us aware of the journey that had brought us to this moment. When we finished, Judith collected the documents and raised her wine glass in a toast. To the Coleman Family Trust, she said, may it continue to support not just financial security, but family harmony for generations to come. As we clinked glasses, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The trust fund that had once been a source of tension and resentment had been transformed into a tool for family unity and shared purpose. Money, which had been a divisive force in our relationships, was now something we discussed openly and managed collectively. After Judith departed, the afternoon transitioned into a leisurely family dinner. Sophia and Emma set the outdoor table, giggling as they arranged the mismatched cloth napkins Eleanor had started using as part of our household sustainability efforts. David and Robert debated the merits of various grilling techniques, while Eleanor and I put the finishing touches on the side dishes. As we gathered around the table, I took a moment to appreciate the scene. 2 years ago, I would have been seated at the second seating, if included at all. Now, I was at the center of the family gathering, my presence not merely tolerated, but genuinely valued. Before we eat, David said, unexpectedly raising his glass, I'd like to propose a toast. We all looked at him in surprise. David wasn't usually one for sentimental gestures. 2 years ago, Margaret gave us what seemed at the time like an ultimatum, he began, his expression serious. She changed the trust terms, imposed conditions, and basically forced us to confront our financial irresponsibility. Eleanor shifted uncomfortably. David, maybe this isn't the time. No, it is exactly the time, he insisted gently. Because what seemed like a punishment then has proven to be the greatest gift anyone could have given us. He turned to face me directly. Margaret, you didn't just save us from financial ruin. You saved our marriage, our family, and quite possibly my relationship with Sophia. Without your intervention, I honestly don't know where we would be today. But I'm quite certain it wouldn't be here, together, happy and secure. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. David, I'm not finished, he said, with a smile. I want to thank you, not just for the financial support, which has been generous beyond measure, but for the tougher gift, the gift of accountability, of boundaries, of consequences for poor choices. He raised his glass higher. To Margaret, who had the courage to say no when saying yes would have been easier. We are forever grateful. To Margaret, the others echoed, even Sophia and Emma, though they clearly didn't understand the full significance of the moment. As we ate, the conversation flowed easily from topic to topic. Sophia's upcoming school play, Robert's new retirement hobby of woodworking, the community garden project Eleanor had recently joined. Normal family talk, the kind that happens around dinner tables everywhere. Yet for us, this ordinary moment represented an extraordinary journey. Later, as the evening cooled and the girls chased fireflies across the lawn, Eleanor and I found ourselves alone on the patio. She studied my face in the gentle glow of the string lights David had hung for the occasion. "You're happy here, aren't you, Mom?" she asked softly. "With us?" I nodded, smiling. "Happier than I've been since your father died. Even though you had to give up your independence, your own space?" I laughed at that. "Have you seen my apartment lately? It's hardly a sacrifice. I have privacy when I want it, company when I need it, and a front row seat to my granddaughter's childhood. What more could I ask for?" She was quiet for a moment, then said, "I think about that Thanksgiving sometimes. How differently things could have gone." "Which Thanksgiving? The basement one, or the one after?" I asked, though I knew perfectly well which she meant. "The basement one," she admitted. "If you had just accepted it, if you had slept in the basement and eaten at the second seating without complaint, where would we be now?" It was a question I had pondered myself many times over the past 2 years. "I imagine we'd be in much the same place we were then," I replied honestly. "You and David struggling financially, but hiding it. Me sending money each month without question. All of us pretending that everything was fine, even as the cracks in the foundation grew wider." She nodded, her expression somber. "You know, I was so angry with you when you changed the trust terms. I thought you were being cruel, punishing us for one mistake." "I know. But it wasn't one mistake, was it? It was a pattern. Years of taking you for granted, of treating you like an ATM," I supplied when she hesitated. "Yes," she acknowledged, wincing slightly at the term. "An ATM, not a mother, not a person with feelings and needs of her own." "We've moved past that," I assured her. "All of us have grown." "Because you forced us to," she pointed out. "If you hadn't been strong enough to set those boundaries, to hold the line even when I tried to manipulate you with tears and guilt." "But I did," I said simply. "And here we are." She took my hand, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I never properly thanked you for the tough love, for believing we could be better than we were." "You didn't need to thank me with words," I told her. "You and David have expressed your gratitude through actions, through the changes you've made, the priorities you've reordered, the values you're instilling in Sophia. Still," she insisted, "I want you to know that I understand now what it must have cost you to take that stand, how much courage it required." I squeezed her hand, feeling the full circle of our journey together. From the daughter who once resented my boundaries to the woman who now appreciated their necessity, it was a transformation as profound as any financial recovery. "The hardest things are often the most worthwhile," I said, "for both of us." As the evening drew to a close and Robert departed with promises to return for Sunday dinner, we began the comfortable routine of cleaning up. David and I rinsed dishes, while Eleanor packed leftovers, and Sophia, having said goodbye to her friend, collected toys from the yard. "Grandma," she called, running up to me with something clutched in her hand. "Look what I found by the tree." It was under some leaves. She opened her palm to reveal an old key on a faded ribbon, the symbolic key to the house they had given me that first Christmas after the ultimatum, when they had invited me to move in. "Oh my," I said, taking it gently. "I wondered where that had gone." "What is it?" she asked, curious. I glanced at Eleanor and David, who had paused in their tasks, remembering as I did the significance of that moment. "It's a key to this house," I explained to Sophia. "Your parents gave it to me a long time ago, as a way of saying I would always be welcome here." "But you already live here," she said, her brow furrowed in confusion. In your apartment in the garage. I do now, I agreed. But I didn't always. There was a time when I hesitated, unsure how to explain the complexity of that period to a child. How do you tell a 7-year-old about trust fund ultimatums, financial irresponsibility, and the painful growth that follows confrontation? David stepped in smoothly. There was a time when we didn't appreciate Grandma as much as we should have, he told Sophia, kneeling to her level. This key was our way of saying we were sorry and that we wanted her to be part of our everyday lives, not just an occasional visitor. Sophia considered this seriously. Like when I didn't appreciate my library books and lost one, and then I had to show I could be responsible before I could get a new library card? Eleanor laughed softly. Something like that, yes. We needed to prove to Grandma that we had learned to be more responsible. With money, Sophia added knowingly, because of the budget and the saving and the not buying things we don't need. I smiled, amazed as always by how much children absorb of adult conversations. That's right, sweetheart. Your parents learned a lot about managing money wisely, and I learned a lot about standing up for myself. And now, we're all together, and nobody sleeps in the basement, Sophia concluded, satisfied with this resolution. Exactly, I agreed, tucking the key into my pocket. Nobody sleeps in the basement. Later that night, back in my apartment, I placed the rediscovered key on my bedside table. Such a small object, yet it represented such a pivotal moment in our family's history. It reminded me of how close we had come to permanent estrangement, and how the difficult choice to establish boundaries had ultimately led to healing. My phone chimed with a text from Eleanor. Thank you for today, for everything. Love you, Mom. I smiled as I typed my reply. Love you too. Always. As I prepared for bed, I found myself reflecting once more on the journey we had taken together. The trust fund ultimatum had never really been about money, though financial issues had been the presenting problem. It had been about respect, about boundaries, about the courage to demand more from those we love and from ourselves. 2 years. Ago, I had been a woman accustomed to accommodation, to making myself small for the comfort of others. I had equated giving with love, even when that giving was unhealthy and unappreciated. I had allowed myself to be relegated to the basement, to the second seating, to the periphery of my own family. Now, I was someone who understood that true generosity must be grounded in self-respect. That healthy boundaries are not walls but foundations upon which loving relationships can be built. That sometimes, the most caring thing we can do for someone is to stop enabling their destructive patterns. The trust fund terms had been amended, the financial crisis averted, the family relationships restored. But the most significant change had occurred within each of us. Eleanor and David had evolved from entitled consumers to thoughtful stewards, and I had transformed from a doormat to a woman who knew her own worth. As I drifted toward sleep, I thought about Sophia, inheritor, not just of the financial trust, but of the lessons we had all learned. She was growing up in a household where money was discussed openly, where values were clearly articulated, where delayed gratification was practiced and appreciated. The contrast with Eleanor's upbringing was stark and entirely intentional. The basement incident, painful as it had ultimately been a gift. It had shattered the facade of our family relationships, exposing the unhealthy patterns beneath. And in doing so, it had created an opportunity for genuine healing and growth. Some lessons are expensive. This one had cost us months of estrangement, tears, and painful confrontations. But as any wise investor knows, the true value of something isn't measured by its cost, but by its return. And the returns on this particular investment, in boundaries, in honesty, in mutual respect, would continue to compound for generations to come. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.